Okay, so I'm going to work through some videos for the systems of linear equations and inequalities unit. Okay, so the videos I do are I'm going to pull a packet, or I want you to go pull the packet that I posted in course documents, okay, in our course, and it's the packet for the systems unit. And I'll just be, talking through some of these as I do lectures on the material, okay? So the first thing I wanted to do is kind of talk about a problem we did at the beginning of class. Let me go up a little bit. Okay. I don't like working with PDFs. I'm going to just do it in a whiteboard, but I wanted you to see it. So we did this on like the first day of class. And I'm going to take it, I'm going to get you to think a little bit about an important question that we might be able to answer that kind of motivates why we learn about systems of equations. Okay, so let me go to the whiteboard. I'm looking at that intro problem. And so we had these two things. We had two movie companies. Net Movies charged a monthly fee of $13 plus $2 per movie. Okay, and then Movies Galore had a different rate. Okay, they charged more for their monthly fee, but then less per movie. They only charged $1 per movie. Okay, so what we did at the beginning of class was we looked at having the number of movies rented in a month. I'll just say number of movies. And then we looked at, okay, what it would turn out to be, what the cost would turn out to be at Net Movies. And then we did what the cost would be at the other place, Movies Galore. Okay, so that's what that chart was kind of all about. All right, and this is like we're going to wind up getting two equations in two variables here that we're going to look at. So we had done things like when you only rent one movie or two movies or three movies. And then we said, well, what about 5 or 10 or what about 12? And then we said, well, what if you rent some number of movies? Let's call it X this time. All right, so we found out what these values would be. If you rented one movie, it was going to be at Net Movies, it was going to wind up being 13 plus 2 times 1, which would be $15. If you rented two movies, it would be $2 times those two movies. That would be 17. So you'd pay $2 more. Flat fee of 13 plus 2 times 3, that would wind up being $19. So we just rented one more movie, so it was $2 more. Okay. Then we made a jump to 5 movies. And so we said, well, movies would cost $2 each, 10 and 13, that would be 26. We just continued that way. 2 times 10 would be 20 plus 13 would be 33. Oops, that was supposed to be an equal sign. Let me fix that. 2 plus 10, 2 times 10 would be 20 plus 13 would be 33. Okay. Is that right? Yeah. All right. And that would have been, I added wrong here. And this one right here, 13 plus 2 times 5, 10 plus 13, that would be 23. And then here we had 13 and then 2 times 12, that's 24 and 33, and that would be 37. Okay, so we were able to come up with the cost, what it would cost us at Net Movies, and we could do the same for Movies Galore. So Movies Galore, this one would be 20 plus 1, which is 21. This would be 20 plus 1 times 2, which would be 22. 20 times $1 times the number of movies, 23. So we've done this before. This one was a little easier since each movie was just $1. Okay. Okay. And that would be what? 20 plus 12, that would be 32. Okay. And so at some point in this, notice that at the beginning, Net Movies was cheaper. Movies Galore was more expensive. But notice at the end, Movies Galore is cheaper and Net Movies is more expensive. So somewhere there in the middle, they changed places. Okay. So here it's still cheaper, here it's still cheaper, here it's still cheaper, but here it's more expensive. So somewhere between 5 and 10, it became more expensive to rent movies at Net Movies. Okay. All right, now another thing we did on that intro problem is we came up with an expression in terms of X. So we don't really have a set number of movies. We're going to let X stand for that. Then we can see here the expression would be 13 plus 2 times the number of movies. Where for Movies Galore, it would be 20 plus 1 times the number of movies. Okay. And then those expressions we could use to make an equation describing the two relationships we had earlier. If we let the cost be Y, we could say here that the cost would equal 13 plus 2 times the number of movies. And here the equation would be Y equals 20 plus 1 time the number of movies. So, you just finished taking a test on chapter 3. These are equations in 2 variables that we could graph in a coordinate plane. So let's do that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and graph that. Now, we're talking about a real situation where we're dealing with numbers of movies. So I know when I draw my graph that both the cost and the number of movies is going to be positive. So everything's going to basically be up here in the first quadrant, we would say. All right, so I want to maybe represent that situation, and I want to get at least to 10 if I can, maybe all the way to 12 since we have the data on that. Okay, so I have to be careful about how I show that over here. So let me try to get all the way to 12. So if I want that to be 12, this would be 6. Let me break this into 3 equal parts, each of these. Okay, that one didn't look so equal, but I tried. Okay, so then that would be 2 movies, 4 movies, 8 movies, 10 movies, 12 movies. So this is the number of movies. And up here, I'm going to do the cost. And if I'm trying to get to 12, I got to get to 32 and 37. So I may want to make this be 40. And then halfway would be, is that halfway? It's not quite half. It's a little too high. Ooh. Then that would be 20, that would be 10, and that would be 30. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do now is try to plot these. I'm going to plot one of them in red and one of them in blue. Okay. All right, so let's do Net Movies. Let's do this one in blue, and then I'm going to do this one. Let me change it to red. Do this one in red. So you can see the difference. All right, so let's do the Net Movies. So when I do that one, I'm using the ordered pair 1, 15. So I'm thinking about 1 and going to 15. Then I'm thinking about 2 being at 17. 3 being just below 20. 4 I don't have. 5, which would be here, is all the way at 23, a little less than that. Okay. 10 is at 33, so that would be kind of up here. All right, and it can be hard to do this, especially the way I've got my computer set up. So you got to cut me a little slack here. And 12 is like at 37. I think that one needs to be a little lower because it's supposed to be 33. That would be 5. And then 12 would be at 37. So maybe like that. All right, the idea is that these should basically be on a line. Okay, something like that. And that one, remember, is, I'm just going to write it on there, is Net Movies. Okay, now I got to go back, and in red, I'm going to do the Movies Galore. So I have that 1 movie was 21. See how it's cost more? 2 movies is 22. 3 movies is 23, just goes up $1 each. 5 movies is 25. All right. 6 movies would be 26. Okay. I'm trying to get it. 6. 7 movies would be 27. Okay. 8 movies, I don't know. Let me go all the way to 10. 10 movies is 30. And that's supposed to be less than the other one. And 12 movies is just at 32. Okay. And so here's that one. And that one's Movies Galore. So I've graphed both of these on the same coordinate plane because this is what we're actually getting ready to work on. Getting ready to work on a situation where we have 2 equations and 2 variables. So here's one, here's another one. Okay, we can collect data and put it in a table. There's one, here's the other. And we can graph it on a coordinate plane. And so we're just representing that relationship in words, using an equation, using a table, using a graph. Okay, now here's what we do with systems. This is why they're important. They're used quite a bit. Is as consumers, we might want to make a choice about which movie company we would want to go with. And so you can't say that NetMovies is the one you should pick because it's cheaper. And you can't say Movies Galore is the one to pick because it's cheaper. Because if you notice, Movies Galore is cheaper. Let me do this in black. Movies Galore costs less than NetMovies to here, it appears. And then NetMovies is the cheaper one on the other side. So one of them's cheaper over here. See, that's NetMovies on this side. And the Movies Galore is up here. Okay. All right. So there seems to be this critical place where it changes. We talked about it somewhere in here. You know, above that line, NetMovies is cheaper. But on the other side of the line, Movies Galore is cheaper, somewhere between 5 and 10. And it's kind of hard to tell, but it looks like around right in here is where the change happens. And so systems of equations is what we're studying to be able to find this right here, this point of intersection. This point of intersection can be that critical thing that helps us to make our decision. Because we know that if we tend to watch not so many movies, we'd want to go with NetMovies, right? So we would go with NetMovies if we typically rent less than whatever that turns out to be. So it's kind of looking like it's around 7, and we'll find out that it actually is. Okay, but you'd actually have to find that. So let's check on that. So if it's 7 movies at NetMovies, it would be 13 plus 2 times 7. And then at Movies Galore, it would be 20 plus 1 times 7. So 13 plus 14, that would be 27. 20 plus 7, that would be 27. See how those are equal when we rent 7 movies? So you would go with NetMovies if you typically rented less than 7 movies, and you would go with Movies Galore if you typically rent more than 7. Okay. All right. So that point of intersection is actually the point 727. And this is going to be our job in just a minute. We're going to be doing what's called solving a system of equations. And what it is finding that point of intersection when there is one, so that we can do like we did here. We can make that decision about which movie place to go with. It all depends on how many movies we typically rent in a month. So I really want you to understand this. So we have a system of equations right here. Here's one equation, here's another. We're putting them together and thinking of them as one entity. We graph it. We got the two lines graphed, and that point of intersection is going to have a special role in all of this. It's that critical point. We know if we rent less than 7 movies, then Net Movies is the cheapest. If we rent more than 7 movies, then Movies Galore is the cheapest. Okay? All right, so that's our job. That's what we're going to be trying to do, is learn how to solve systems of linear equations. Okay? All right.